What advice do you have to the youth?
Yeah. I thought the first appeal I would want to make is to the youth in regard to post-election violence. And I've said severally that the greatest loser in an insecure and politically unstable Kenya is the youth. They have a great future. It's all there for their taking. But if they flash back to 2007, 2008, they will realize just how fragile their opportunity is. Because if Kenya flares up the way it had started, it's over. The dream is lost. And they have the whole of the future to take into account. So I think the youth in the country should be encouraged to read beyond the rhetoric, the political rhetoric that comes from local and national leadership, in regard to inciting them on account of land injustices, historical land injustices, and simply trash it and tell the gentlemen and women who may want to go that route that they are tired of it. It came 1992, 1997, 2002, 2005, 20. It cannot be a feature of this country during every election. So the youth need to tell them to just simply get off their backs and allow them to piggy on the constitutional and the legal processes provided, the mechanisms provided for those things to be addressed in a sober and structured manner. You know, open processes that finally get you somewhere, as opposed to violence which begets more violence and ultimately cannot solve that problem. I think that's the first appeal to the youth, and they really need to put their feet firmly on account of this matter. Otherwise, I think the greatest loser would be them. And if they lose, look, we also look at Dennis, it's the damage to the local and national economies, the damage to our global image and global trade. I think we all really need to say enough is enough and simply resort to the legal processes of resolving this problem. And for the coming elections, for instance, simply say, never again, we will not allow it. We think we can do this differently this time around. But the other thing for the youth is what I've just said. I think today's youth must appreciate that land provides an opportunity for production, for shelter, for business. So what the youth must relate with land from a smart perspective. Smart in the sense that if you want shelter, please, you can get shelter. You don't have to get shelter out there in your rural area where your father had land. You can get shelter in Athi River, in Ongatarungai, in Thika, in Nakuru, where you are. And that's why we are talking about the element of let's get smart. You can even get a title to a flat. If you cannot own a piece of land, get a big block of flats, which is now a popular concept today. Each flat, like this one, will have its title. So buy that, and that becomes your address for purposes of your production. But you are not going to be beholden to your father's piece of land in rural Kenya, which is essentially farming land, and you actually are an IT expert who will never have anything to do with that. So I think we need to reconsider our priorities as today's generation and begin to find out whether we can get out of this enslavement whereby we think ownership of what was my father in the rural area. And there are many ways youth today and families can relate with land to know how best, to administer the land that belonged to their fathers and forefathers, but engage in what is relevant to them today in their particular locations. And this is the way I see this country going. And if we do the kind of zoning that we are talking about in the national land policy and the land use plans that we are supposed to be doing, I think the issue of a person working in Kisumu and still talking about their piece of land in Tetu in Nyeri, which is basically dedicated to tea farming, and the gentleman is busy running a restaurant in Kisumu, it really will go. But what is important is to use legal processes to ensure that if you thought you have rights to a piece of land in a particular area, you release them for use by other people so that you can get a benefit for what was your right, but concentrate on what enhances both your interest and your probably area of specialty, and also enhances national production.